Hello, welcome to Polyphonic Press. My name is Jeremy Boyd, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new album by Neil Young and Crazy Horse entitled Psychedelic Pill. Here we go. So I'm sure you guys know who Neil Young is. He started out in a band called Buffalo Springfield and went on to his solo career and playing in bands with Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and things like that. And he's played with his band Crazy Horse on and off since about 1969. They released an album earlier this year of American folk tunes, but this is their first album since 2003 to include new material. And this album starts off with a song called Driftin Back, and it's written from the perspective of someone who is Neil Young's age and sort of looking back on his life and looking back on the things that he used to like and how he's sort of unfamiliar or doesn't really connect with today's culture. It's from a nostalgic point of view, sort of, reminiscing about things he used to be connected with. It starts off with Neil Young and an acoustic guitar for the first verse, and then eventually the whole band comes in an exploding electric feel, and really you get the sense that this is being played live. One thing that makes this band unique is the harmonies, and you can really tell immediately that it is Neil Young and Crazy Horse singing because the voices are so distinct when they all blend together. The song is pretty long. It's clocking in at about 27 minutes, but I didn't really feel bored or like it was dragging on when I was listening to this song. This is definitely not for someone with a short attention span, but if you can sit down and listen to the whole thing, it really is worth the listen because it really gives you a glimpse into a band playing, and you don't get the sense that they planned everything out. It's pretty loose, more of a jammy feel, kind of like the Allman Brothers or something like that. You know, I know it's a long song, and I do know that people would get bored with it, but I do respect a band who can improvise and play off of each other and still have it come out sounding as if they've planned it out. You can kind of tell that it is improvised, but it's not overly obvious. The title track, Psychedelic Pill, is a hard rock tune, but it is pretty psychedelic, and one thing that makes it psychedelic is it's got this flange effect going across the entire mix. Usually you hear this effect on like one or two instruments, or if it is over the entire mix, it's usually just in one certain part of the song. This effect was done a lot in the 60s, most notably on Ichiku Park by the Small Faces. It has a flange effect across the entire mix. But again, that is only part of the song. It's not the whole song. This effect kind of goes through the whole song. To be honest, it's a little distracting, but it is a good song, and it is a highlight for me. The most interesting song for me on this album is a song called Born in Ontario, and really it's easy for me to relate to because I'm a Canadian. I was born in Ontario, currently still do live in Ontario. You know, he talks about his travels and all the places he's seen, talks about going across the United States and going into Europe and things like that, all the places he's played as a musician over the years. And all the traveling he's done, and even though he talks about living in California on his ranch, but still in the back of his mind he's still a Canadian kid from Toronto, and for obvious reasons it is a really easy song for me to relate to. The song For the Love of Man is a much slower song. It doesn't have any acoustic guitars or anything on it, but it is much slower. It's more of a ballad type of thing. It's still very much a live song, and in typical Neil Young fashion, he's written a song that how he sees the world and how the world is kind of a screwed up place and how he wishes it was a better place. He's sort of pointing out all the shortcomings of the world and things you could do to make it better. It's more of an advice kind of song and sort of looking at the world from someone who has a lot of experience under his belt. The album ends with an alternate version of Psychedelic Pill. It's the same recording, but just a different mix. It doesn't have the flange effect on it. This isn't the first time that Neil Young has done this either. A lot of his albums, he'll bookend the album with two different versions of the same song. Case in point, the album Freedom, released in 1989, has two different versions of Rockin' in the Free World. One version is a slower live acoustic version, and the other one is the more familiar electric version. and he's done this on countless albums as well, like Rust Never Sleeps and Tonight's the Night. But this is the same recording that you heard previously. It just doesn't have the same effect. It's just a different mix. And I like that there are two options for this song. You know, if you're in a psychedelic mood, you want to put on the psychedelic version. If you want to rock out to some really cool vibes, put on the straight ahead version. It really depends on what mood you're in. The production is pretty straightforward. There's not really much you can do with a live band other than just set up the microphones and go. And even to have a 27-minute song, you know, a typical producer might cut it down to like an 8-minute song, but I think it has a certain charm to it, and all the jammy parts to it and all the improvisation. There is a certain charm and a certain sort of anarchy kind of looseness to it. You know, obviously Neil Young is a renowned songwriter, and rightfully so, but I do think that Crazy Horse are an underrated band. There are some really fantastic musicians and some really good interplay between the musicians. I really, like I said before, I really do respect a band who can just kind of play without any planning or anything like that. As I said before, this album is not for someone with a short attention span. It's something you have to sit down and listen to the whole thing from start to finish. It's not something you can really put on in the background. It's something you should sit down and pay attention to. This album is pretty raw, and it's probably the best representation of this band as a live act without being live, and I think this album really rings true and really gets down to the bare bones of everything. I love this album. There's not much bad I can say about it, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So anyway, that's what I thought about the album. Let me know what you guys think in the comments or with a video response. If you'd like to suggest an album for me to review, please leave that in the comments as well, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.